Hey, how's it going? I've decided I'm gonna kind of start up a little bit of a video blog about just like kind of ideas and stuff like that. Maybe we can have some like idea type conversation about things. Kind of cool. But I've been on a thinking tangent lately based around the idea of small births and small deaths. Um, I've been on a little mental journey to redefine life and death for myself so that I understand it in a way that's not scary or in a way that I feel violates me in any way, shape, or form. So I don't know. There have been a few things that I've been like few pieces of media here and there that have been really inspiring for me. And I realized that life and death are should be retermed as presences and absences. And this comes into play in the fact that, well, this depending on what you decide to believe, most people tend to believe in some form of reincarnation or some form of moving on, some form of life after death. And if you're atheist, then that kind of divides you from the conversation in that respect, I guess. I mean, and there is no scientific proof or anything like that. It's more word of mouth from people of old. But the way that I see it is that if a person dies from this perspective, it's simply a body no longer being at a level of operation. It simply can't operate any longer. So it's not a true death. It's not an absence of consciousness, unless it is, and that's a bone to the atheism. But if it is not a death of consciousness, then it is simply a separation and an absence. So it would be characterized as a large death. But if it does come down to being present or absent for life or death, then it comes to play that these things actually operate in smaller cycles throughout our lives. I find that there is this kind of ring nature to the world where on an outer ring you can see parallels to things in a closer ring. For example, how would we phrase this? Learning cycles uh, in the mind. When somebody's taking on a new personality trait, there tends to be a very hard rise, a very high, like a hard egotistical rise, where a person adapts a new character trait, whether they've taken it in through media or whatever, or they've kind of imagined it. Say somebody's decided to take on a more cocky characteristic. They take on the full characteristic with the or being negative side effects onto the consciousness. So as they start to rise up with it and it hits kind of a crescendo, there are points where they realize that the entire adaptation is incoherent and they start to move into a slight depression where the or starts to kind of come off, come off, come off. They hit a lower point moving into the characteristic and then finally coming back up again. They get rid of the negative characteristics and they learn how to adapt the new characteristic in a way that's coherent and that they can live their day with it. So that's an example of one kind of cycle, and I think that that equates to, I mean, easy one are ideas about evolution, things like that. But you'll kind of find just as you live your day, everything has this nature in which it somewhat repeats itself. So you can kind of cross apply knowledge in that respect. But if you take what you can observe of presence and absence in your daily life and expand it to an external level, you can kind of cross barriers a little bit and build yourself pieces of a skeleton that should be there on the other side, past your vision, so to speak, so that you can start to understand everything that might possibly be happening right past the lip, so to speak. So if it's all just presence and absence, we can practice uh, an understanding, a calm understanding of all these sorts of things in the way that We see people around us coming and going. Um, and it just puts a new swing on things. People try and hold on to each other as much as possible because it gives them a sense of self value. I don't know if that goes to say that when somebody experiences an absence, they perceive death within themselves, a death of an outlet for which they express themselves. And I can understand why that would be traumatic. Uh, that's interesting, actually. I like that. And through that lens, if we equate that to death, if we learn about what it could possibly be throughout that experience, and I think one of the heaviest things to do with death is the fact that you cannot imprint on that person anymore, and then that person can't imprint on you anymore. Obviously, there's no exchange because it's a dramatic absence. Um, but if we get to learn to understand smaller absences, and we learn to live more calmly, uh, as much as we possibly can. We always lose. I feel. Why should I say we? That's kind of. But I feel like life has a tendency to move into a heavier difficulty as things become easier. So things that were hard to manage before become easier to manage as you kind of move into the full slipstream of what life wants to expose you to. So if we climb this mountain of presence and absence, then we can move on to greater things, and we can see more of what life is actually about and what's actually in front of us. Um, so I've gone on for 7 minutes now. I think I'll try and close up with an entire idea. Um, yeah, simply try and learn about presence and absence to find peace of mind in your life. Um, because there are some powerful ideas that come along with it, um, and it's an entertaining uh, folder of ideas, so to speak. It comes with it. So enjoy that little tidbit. Try and munch on it a bit.